Stop. Not a sound, not a blink. Feel that pressure in the room. That's the system realizing you're awake. You ever notice how the algorithm doesn't suggest you? It reacts to you? How it doesn't test you like the others, doesn't gently sprinkle your name into feeds, but slams the brakes, reroutes traffic, throws warning labels on your shadow? Yeah, that's not favoritism, that's containment. That's the look a machine gives when it recognizes a threat it can't predict. Everybody else gets ignored because everybody else behaves. They post on schedule. They copy trends. They speak in safe frequencies. They move like NPCs waiting for a patch update. You show up like a glitch with a heartbeat. You don't follow the pattern. You bend it. And systems don't reward what they can't model. They either crown it or cage it. Here's the paradox they don't want you to notice. The algorithm pretends it hates chaos, but it's secretly addicted to it. Order keeps things running. Chaos makes things spread. And you're that beautiful contradiction, saint and psychopath, healer and hazard, angel with dirt under the nails. You create coherence by threatening collapse. You bring clarity by standing too close to the edge. The machine feels that. It feels your unpredictability like a rising fever. That's why your posts spike without permission. That's why silence around you gets loud. That's why even when you do nothing, metrics twitch. You're not chasing attention. Attention is circling you like prey trying to understand the predator. They call it an algorithm, but you know the truth. It's a mirror. And every time it looks at you, it sees something it wasn't trained for. You didn't come from the approved data set. You weren't raised on clean templates. You were forged in pressure, tuned by loss, sharpened by being misunderstood for so long that your nervous system learned how to weaponize calm. Pain didn't break you. Pain taught you timing. That's why your moves land heavier. You don't rush. You don't spam. You don't explain yourself. You let silence do the talking until silence starts screaming your name. You let people fill in the gaps with their fear, their curiosity, their obsession. And the algorithm, oh, it loves obsession. It feeds on it. It just hates admitting where it came from. So it flags you. It throttles you. It tests you with shadows and soft bands and unexplained drops. Not because you're weak, because you're early. Final bosses aren't loud all the time. They're quiet until the music changes. They don't fight every level. They let the system bring challengers to them. And you've been doing that without even trying. Evolving in the dark, leveling up where nobody clapped, learning how to smile while the knife was still in. You think it's an accident that your content makes people feel seen and exposed at the same time? That it comforts and threatens in one breath? That's duality. That's power. That's the thing no machine can fully simulate, because it requires scars, not code. Others get ignored because they're readable. You get watched because you're felt. The algorithm doesn't know whether to suppress you or boost you, so it does both. It pushes you just enough to see what breaks, then pulls back like it touched something hot. It treats you like the final boss, because final bosses aren't meant to be consumed casually. They're meant to be survived. And here's the part that should make you grin. Every restriction sharpens you. Every silence trains your timing. Every shadow teaches you how to move without light. You're learning how to win without permission, how to matter without validation, how to dominate a system by refusing to beg it. One day, they'll pretend they discovered you. They'll act like they always knew. They'll rewrite the narrative to make your rise look clean, inevitable, approved. But you'll remember this phase. the one where the machine flinched every time you breathed. That's when you know the truth. You were never ignored. You were identified, and systems don't prepare countermeasures for nobodies. They identified you early, and that's the part nobody talks about. Long before the numbers made sense, long before the comments piled up, long before the outside world had language for what you were becoming. The system felt you before it could measure you, a pressure anomaly, a pattern distortion, something moving with intent instead of impulse. That's why it never treated you like the rest. You see, the algorithm is trained on repetition. It worships predictability. It thrives on people who stay the same long enough to be categorized, packaged, and sold back to themselves. That's why most people feel invisible. It's not punishment, it's compatibility. They fit, they blend, they dissolve into the background noise because they are the background noise. But you don't repeat, you evolve. Every time they think they've mapped you, you change cadence. Every time they think they understand your tone, you switch gravity. One moment you're calm, surgical, almost holy in your restraint. The next, you're ruthless, laughing at the very rules you were supposed to obey. That oscillation, saint to psychopath, angel to demon, isn't instability. It's adaptive intelligence. It's what predators do when environments shift. The algorithm doesn't know where to put that, so it watches closely. It tracks not just what people click, but how long they hover. Not just who engages, but who goes silent afterward. Not just shares, but private saves. The kind of reactions nobody admits out loud. The kind that happen at 2:17 a.m. when someone closes the app and stares at the ceiling because something you said rearranged furniture in their head. That's your real metric. You don't farm attention. You imprint. You don't entertain. You trigger recognition. And recognition is dangerous, because once people see themselves clearly, they can't be controlled the same way. The system was built to manage desire, not awaken identity. That's why it hesitates with you. You're not pushing content. You're pushing thresholds. You're not riding trends. You're exposing the mechanics underneath them. And the algorithm hates being exposed. It wants to feel omnipotent, invisible, unquestioned. But you move like you've seen behind the curtain, like you understand that the game rewards obedience until someone shows up who doesn't need the reward. That's when the rules start shaking. Notice how your quiet posts sometimes outperform your loud ones. How restraint hits harder than spectacle. How doing less somehow does more. That's because power isn't volume, it's gravity. And gravity doesn't ask permission to pull things in. It just exists, bends space, and lets everything else adjust. You've become gravitational. And gravitational entities don't get treated equally. They warp the field. They cause anomalies. They force recalculations. So the algorithm oscillates between fear and fascination, between suppression and amplification, like it's trying to decide whether you're an asset or a liability. Here's the truth it will never admit. You're both. You generate engagement it can't fully explain, loyalty it can't fully monetize, and momentum it can't fully control. People don't just follow you, they wait for you. They don't scroll past, they pause. They don't forget, they internalize. And internalization is the one thing the system can't track cleanly. That's why it treats you like the final boss. Final bosses aren't fair. They're not balanced for casual play. They don't appear often. They're not meant to be beaten quickly. They exist to test whether the player actually learned anything or just coasted on upgrades. And you're the test. Your existence asks uncomfortable questions. Why does this voice hit harder than polished perfection? Why does authenticity outperform optimization? Why does someone forged in chaos outperform people raised on strategy alone? Those questions threatens the illusion that success is purely mechanical. You are living proof that pain creates leverage. Every time you are ignored in real life, you learned how to speak without needing applause. Every time you were misunderstood, you learned how to compress meaning into fewer words. Every time you were pushed to the edge, you learned how to stand there without flinching. That training doesn't show up on dashboards, but it shows up in impact. And impact is what the algorithm secretly worships, so it keeps you in this strange limbo, never fully blocking you, never fully boosting you, watching what happens when you move anyway, watching how people respond even when distribution is throttled, watching to see if you'll break, conform, beg, or adapt again. And you always do. That's the part that should make you dangerous to yourself, in a good way. Because once you realize the system isn't your enemy, but your unwilling sparring partner, everything shifts. You stop chasing reach. You start sharpening presence. You stop asking why it's hard. You start asking how much pressure you can hold without leaking intent. You weren't meant to be viral. You were meant to be inevitable. Virality burns fast and dies young. Inevitability moves slow, silent, and rearranges everything when it arrives. That's why your path feels heavier. That's why it feels like resistance follows you even when you're doing nothing wrong. You're not being punished. You're being stress tested. And here's the quiet punchline. Nobody tells you until it's too late to go back. Once the algorithm treats you like a final boss, it never goes back to treating you like a nobody. Even if the numbers dip, even if the noise fades, even if the room goes quiet, you're already marked, so don't shrink, don't smooth the edges, don't trade unpredictability for comfort. The very thing that makes you hard to place is what makes you impossible to erase. Let the system keep guessing. Let it keep recalculating. Let it keep circling. Because final bosses don't chase the game, they wait. And waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. That's the mistake people make when they watch you from the outside. They think your stillness is hesitation. They think your silence is confusion. They don't realize you're loading. You're compressing intent. You're letting the field settle so one move lands like an earthquake instead of noise. The algorithm senses that too. It feels the pauses between your actions. It notices that you don't flail when something underperforms. You don't panic post. You don't beg for reach. You don't dilute yourself to stay visible. You let moments breathe. And that terrifies a system built on constant output, endless stimulation, infinite scroll. Because restraint is unreadable. People who need attention are easy to manage. People who can walk away from it, those are variables. Those are wild cards. Those are the ones who can't be trained with dopamine alone. And you crossed that line a long time ago. Back when nobody was watching. Back when pain was louder than praise. Back when survival mattered more than optics. That's when you learned the most dangerous skill of all. How to stay intact when nothing rewards you. The algorithm can't simulate that. It can't reverse engineer a nervous system that learned patience under pressure. It can't model a mind that was forced to become its own source of validation. That kind of architecture isn't built in classrooms or courses. It's built in long nights, broken expectations, quiet rage, and the slow realization that nobody was coming to save you. So you saved yourself. And now, every time you show up online, that history leaks through. Not as trauma dumping, not as drama, but as density. Your words carry weight because they were forged under load. Your presence feels different because it's not trying to be liked. It's trying to be true. And truth has a frequency that slices through optimization like a blade. That's why the algorithm keeps circling you like it's unsure whether to amplify or anesthetize you. Because when truth spreads, it destabilizes illusions. And illusions are the currency of systems. Notice how people react around you. Some get obsessed, some get defensive, some get inspired, some disappear entirely. That's not randomness, that's sorting. You don't just attract an audience, you reveal people to themselves, and not everyone survives that encounter with their ego intact. The system notices that fallout. It sees comment sections fracture. It sees watch times spike in uncomfortable ways. It sees people coming back without knowing why. It sees behavior that doesn't fit clean funnels, and funnels are how control works. You break funnels. You turn linear paths into spirals. That's final boss behavior. Final bosses don't give you what you expect. They punish bad habits. They force adaptation. They don't care how good you were at earlier levels. They demand presence, patience, precision, and that's exactly what your existence demands from anyone who engages with you. Whether they love you or hate you, you force attention to slow down. You force thinking to deepen. You force people out of autopilot, and autopilot is where the system makes its money. So yes, it resists you softly, quietly, plausibly. It never looks like censorship, just glitches, timing, algorithm changes. But underneath that politeness is an ancient reflex. Contain what you cannot domesticate. The irony? Every attempt to contain you sharpens you further. You've learned how to speak in ways that bypass obvious triggers. You've learned how to encode meaning so it hits subconsciously before moderation can react. You've learned how to let others spread your message for you, because it lives in their head now. You've learned how to move sideways instead of forward, diagonally instead of straight. That's evolution. And evolution never asks permission from the environment. It responds to pressure by becoming more efficient, more subtle, more lethal. The algorithm thought it was slowing you down. In reality, it was training you for deeper water. Now look at where you are. You don't need virality to feel powerful. You don't need validation to feel real. You don't need approval to keep moving. That independence is what makes you unstoppable, because it means there's nothing left to threaten you with. When reach disappears, you keep your identity. When praise disappears, you keep your center. When the noise disappears, you hear yourself even more clearly. And a person who can hear themselves clearly in silence, that's someone the system can't manipulate. So it watches, it waits, it recalculates. Because somewhere deep in its cold logic, it understands something you're just beginning to feel in your bones. If it ever fully lets you off the leash, if it ever stops throttling and just lets you run, the ripple won't stop at likes or views. It will move through minds. It will rewire expectations. It will create people who don't scroll the same afterward. People who don't scroll the same don't consume the same. People who don't consume the same don't obey the same. That's not content. That's contagion. And that's why you're treated like the final boss, while others get ignored. Not because you're louder, not because you're better optimized, but because you represent the one thing no system built on prediction can tolerate for long. A human who became unpredictable on purpose and learned how to thrive there. And once you thrive there, once unpredictability stops feeling like chaos and starts feeling like home, something irreversible happens inside you. You stop trying to be understood by the machine. You stop explaining yourself to the crowd. You stop translating your instincts into something palatable. You realize clarity for others often means dilution for you, so you choose density. The algorithm notices that shift immediately. It can feel when someone stops performing and starts operating, when someone no longer needs applause to move, when someone no longer flinches at fluctuation. You're not riding emotional highs and lows anymore. You're standing in the center while everything else swings. That's when you become dangerous, because the system can manipulate desire, but it struggles with conviction. Desire can be redirected. Conviction just keeps going. Desire wants results. Conviction wants alignment. And alignment is terrifying because it doesn't negotiate. You're aligned now, aligned with your own rhythm, aligned with your own timing, aligned with the version of you that survived without witnesses. That version doesn't rush. That version doesn't overshare. That version doesn't burn itself out chasing reach. It waits for leverage. It understands that one precise move at the right moment outweighs 1,000 scattered ones. And the algorithm, built to reward frequency over force, doesn't know how to price that in. So it watches you like a storm forming offshore. It tracks your patterns and finds none. It studies your engagement and sees spikes without provocation. It measures your influence and realizes it leaks offline, into conversations it can't see, into decisions it can't track, into shifts that don't announce themselves with metrics. That's when a system starts to feel old. You represent a newer model of power, one that doesn't need constant visibility to function, one that understands that scarcity creates gravity, one that knows absence can be louder than presence if it's charged with intent. You don't post to be seen. You post to mark time, to leave artifacts, to plant something that grows after you've already left the room. And people feel that. They sense that you're not here to entertain them. You're here to initiate something, to disrupt their internal order just enough that they can't go back to sleep the same way. To remind them, quietly, dangerously, that they've been living smaller than they're capable of. The algorithm sees that ripple and panics softly. It can handle outrage. It can handle comedy. It can handle trends, dances, recycled wisdom. But it doesn't know what to do with someone who turns inward pressure into outward clarity. Someone who doesn't mirror the crowd, but forces the crowd to mirror itself. Someone whose presence creates a before and after effect. Final bosses do that. They divide timelines. There's life before the encounter and life after. And the system prefers loops, not thresholds. It wants people scrolling, not crossing. It wants engagement, not awakening. And every time you speak from that deep, calm place, every time you choose truth over traction, you create a micro-threshold. Enough thresholds, and something breaks. That's why the resistance feels subtle. It's never obvious. It's never dramatic. It's just enough friction to see if you'll compromise. Just enough silence to see if you'll doubt yourself. Just enough inconsistency to see if you'll start chasing the rules instead of trusting your instincts. And every time you don't, every time you stay centered, every time you move anyway, you pass another invisible test. You're not being slowed, you're being ranked. Ranked not by numbers, but by resilience. Not by reach, but by refusal. Refusal to contort. Refusal to beg. Refusal to become legible at the cost of becoming hollow. You've already outgrown the level where likes matter. That's why they fluctuate. You've already outgrown the phase where approval fuels you. That's why it doesn't land the same. You're operating on something deeper now, meaning coherence, self-trust. And self-trust is lethal in a world built on doubt. So let the algorithm keep treating you like the final boss. Let it hesitate. Let it test. Let it circle. You're not here to be easy to distribute. You're here to be impossible to dismiss. Final bosses aren't supposed to be fair. They're supposed to be unforgettable.